This podcast is sponsored by Odds Monkey. Beat the bookie and make money whether you win, lose or draw. Swing by oddsmonkey.com today to try the UK's #1 matched betting service for just £1. Enter promo code BIRDCAMP when you register and upgrade to premium.
Hello and welcome to the Gooner Ramble. I'm your host Giles, and joining me tonight are new signing. We've got Dave Seeger. How you doing, Dave? Welcome aboard.
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thank you very much.
Good man. And also we've got a special guest tonight, Orbinho, aka Rob. How you doing, Rob? Thanks for coming on.
I'm good, thank you.
Good stuff. Right, so 24 hours after last night's calamity show, I always think it's good to have a period of reflection, if you want, rather than sort of, coming on straight after a game where the emotions are high, raw. You might not get everything in perspective and whatnot. And I think we've had a period now to sort of look over what's happened and get, all kinds of information or views and opinions from all kind of media outlets. And today, I'll start by, I've been reading the Evening Standard, and apparently Theo Walker has actually come out and said there was some kind of altercation in the training ground, and it's been happening recently. He said it's no different from any other ground, any other sort of altercations or disagreements or whatever in any other ground, any other club in the land. Dave, I'll start with you. How do you think the club, first of all, do you think the club have just rolled Theo out as they have with other players recently to sort of like, give everybody sort of the party line to make it look like, this is all, water off a duck's back and we shouldn't worry about it? Or do you think there's a deeper lying problem?
I've been thinking about it a lot, Giles, and the honest answer is I haven't got the faintest idea. I do think it's quite likely that Theo was asked to talk. Yes, I guess I hadn't thought about that, but now you say it does seem quite likely. He's a very presentable, long-standing member of the squad and a logical person. In the same way as that Perk came out, sort of saying let's get behind the team as the club captain. So I guess that's logical. I would also accept that these sort of things do happen in training grounds all over the country all the time. It's a big issue for us because, we're following the story, and it's a big issue because the club is not in a good way, with results and things going on behind the scenes. So I guess it just focuses us all in on a bit more, particularly when it all centres around, the will he, won't he stay style player. So yeah, it just seems to make it more under the microscope perhaps than it would be, for any other club at any other time, I guess.
Rob, coming to you, and before we sort of like talk about yourself and what you do, just quickly, what do you make of everything that's come out of the club or, by certain media outlets who link to the club recently? When you think go ahead, sorry.
So, obviously, it's not a happy club at the moment. I think that seems to be clear. From sort of the players through to the management team, through to the supporters, there seem to be, sort of the issues seem to have been going on for many years now, really. So I think we're at the point where something seems to have to give. It seems that sort of, one or two bad results and the knives are out, and it's quite an extreme reaction. And, it's certainly not good that you have fans at each other's throats when, really we should all be pulling together to try and support the team. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing that it sort of seems to be coming down to this, but it does seem to have been coming for quite a while now.
When we look at the state of the club, Rob, I seem to think, I don't know if anybody else agrees with it, but some people do, I seem to think we're sort of stuck in a time warp, an era gone by where obviously Wenger's the CEO of the players, he's the face of the club. Everything sort of like revolves around him pretty much, especially obviously on the football side, and sort of football sort of moved on in the last 20 years since he arrived in England, where, you don't micromanage so many elements, outside of coaching the team. And it seems to me that he's pretty reluctant to to move ahead and move on and progress with the times. How have you seen it? How do you see that sort of aspects of the club?
It's difficult to say, obviously not being on the inside, but I don't really share that view completely. I mean, a couple of years ago, obviously Arsenal invested in their own data collection company with data analytics, Stat DNA.
Yeah.
So they're looking at, sort of trying to scout players in a different way, a more creative way, being clever about their decisions if they can, trying to find players who are perhaps undervalued, to improve the team, because you've got to remember they are competing with, 7 or 8 teams who have, seemingly limitless funds. And as rich as a club that Arsenal are, they still can't compete with some of the really, truly, oil-powered teams, if you like. And, I think that the thing is that it's an interesting one, because ultimately, if you think about all of us, if you were consistently in the top 2 or 3 performing employees in your business for 20 years, but you weren't ever the top one, you would kind of expect to have the opportunity to sort of keep going, keep doing your job, and not to be particularly vilified for what you've done. So I think it's not easy to finish in the top 4. It's not easy to consistently, be up and around the top of the table. It's just incredibly difficult to find that extra small percentage which turns you from a team that's, a nearly team to a team that actually wins trophies. And if we look at it, I mean, last year, Leicester won the league by 10 points. You may have heard of the new metric that's being talked about quite a lot these days, expected goals, which looks at the chances of all shots and resulting in a goal. And actually, Arsenal, if you look at expected goals and the actual quality of the chances they were producing, they should have actually won the league by 7 points last year. So that's a 17-point swing. And that's effectively a combination of luck and good finishing by Leicester and luck and bad finishing by Arsenal last season. We were actually pretty close to actually winning a trophy last year. It's just that things went Leicester's way pretty much the whole season, and they didn't go Arsenal's way at crucial points. But there are other things obviously within the club. I mean, Alexis Sanchez, he's been involved in 26 goals this season, scoring 17, 9 assists in the league. That's more than any other player, and you're really just cutting your nose off to spite your face by not playing your best player. So there are clearly some issues within the club that need to be resolved. But it's a difficult one, because to maintain that level of performance for 20 years is not easy. And you only have to look at what's happened at United. And what's happened in the past at places like Villa and Leeds, where they've kind of dropped managers because they didn't quite achieve what they expected them to achieve, and someone else coming in hasn't been able to replicate that success. I'm not saying that's a reason to not change things. It is very frustrating for everybody to seemingly be doing the Groundhog Day of the season every year, but we may not be the best team, but we're also a long, long way from being the worst.
Dave, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually agree with much of that, to be honest. There's no question it's a massive achievement to do what we do year in, year out. But that was fine in the period of austerity. It was fine, for a long period. But it really isn't fine for the last 5 years, particularly when the mistakes, as we all know, are exactly the same all the time. And I do go back to your original point, Giles. When he came in 1996, he was virtually the only foreign manager in the Premier League, and everyone talks about him revolutionising English football. He was probably only doing what every manager in Germany and Italy was already doing. It might have been different in England, but it wasn't different in the rest of Europe. And that's fine, and we absolutely commend him for what he did. It was a miraculous achievement to get the best out of the players that were already there and long established, to bring in fantastic talent. But that was such a long time ago, and football's moved on. It just has, and we see, I would never condone Arsenal to be a club that changes managers like the wind, like Chelsea. Of course I wouldn't. But equally, we have to recognise that tactically, structurally, the formations, most of what he does, he's been doing the same since 2009 when he changed, from the old 4-4-2. And it's very rare that he tries something different. That's my problem. It's not about how much money we spend. There are teams that win trophies without buying the most expensive players. We know that. We don't need to dwell on it. But the reality is he's doing the same things over and over again, and they aren't working. And if you want to go back to Rob, to the analogy with work, that is absolutely the case. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again in any walk of life or work, and it doesn't work, why would you carry on doing the same thing? That's just not logical. So that's my issue.
Objectives are, doesn't it? Really, I mean, that's the thing is, you can't guarantee winning the league every year, but you can guarantee, and it's also very difficult to guarantee being very close. I mean, people.
Well, I didn't say the league. I didn't say the league, Rob. I said trophies, and so did you. I mean, I didn't say we should win the league.
We've won 2 of the last 3 FA Cups, and
that's fantastic.
So again, I do understand the frustration of a lot of fans, and I share that to a certain extent, and I agree also that we do the same things, and sometimes it's frustrating. You sit there and you think, well, why don't we do something different? But actually, I think the thing is sometimes it is just a little bit of luck. I mean, we look at 2007-08 and the injury to Eduardo and how that sort of changed the season over a very short period of time. But those few games were actually critical in us then not winning the league. We were pretty close in 2009 and 10. And actually last year, as I said, it was just the fact that Leicester were winning, games by the odd goal. They got 13 odd penalties. That Schmeichel was pulling out saves right, left and centre. I mean, it was just a freak season, and actually Arsenal should have won the league. But it's that's at the end of the day they didn't, and that's what he's going to be judged by. And I think it's just for me, it's gone to the point where the fan base and the club is just at the point where it needs to change, regardless of whether it's the right thing or not.
Yeah, but I'm not talking as an entitled fan, Rob. I'm not one of those sort of guys. I mean, I'm happily turning up week in, week out and seeing my team competing and challenging and playing good football. That's me. If we win the trophies, it's better. It's fantastic. But I'm actually not enjoying watching Arsenal play, which is hurting me. It's not a case of I think we should win the league every year. I just want to go back to turning up and thinking we're going to have a crack at every team and we're going to play good football. And this Wenger ball thing is a complete myth. We play 1 or 2 games like that a season. That's what I want. I want to see a team that's going to be set up to face the opposition we're facing on the day. And if that means changing the team, changing the tactics, so doing, that's what I want. And I want to see a team that's going to challenge by being flexible and by being exciting. If we win, it's great. If we don't, it's been an exciting journey along the way. Nothing is exciting at Arsenal right now.
It's been a long time since we've seen a lot of exciting football. I'd agree that. I think actually our performances have been pretty average.
Yeah.
I mean, this year, I think, Arsenal at the start of the season, they were basically posting unsustainable numbers. I think there was one point in November where they had scored 7 goals from 7 shots on target. I mean, they were scoring with every chance, and you just can't do that all season. And there's been a noticeable drop off in performance really over the last 3 months. The team was sort of seemingly getting by with sort of fairly average performances, but were winning games. But ultimately, those below par performances have now caught up with us in terms of results. This is our worst run of form for a long, long time.
And you said, I think I saw a tweet from you earlier today. It mirrors this time last season.
Yeah, right? It seems to always be around February, March time. So, this is the thing, is that we seem to get into a period where, Champions League, FA Cup and League games are coming thick and fast. We've obviously suffered a few injuries and things around this sort of time. So it seems to be that, we kind of implode at this time of the year. And then, when the pressure's off and we seemingly can't win anything, then the team starts to perform and pulls a series of results together to kind of rescue the season, and we end up finishing 3rd or 4th, So it does seem to be a bit, as I said earlier on, Groundhog Day.
Can I ask you? You mentioned stat DNA, and Rory Smith wrote a really good piece on it recently. about how Ivan Gazidis, I think it was Ivan Gazidis that introduced it or basically made Wenger, or bought it anyway, and Wenger sort of like it's converted to it. Is that right?
I think it was actually there was a business development director, Hendrik Almstadt, who was the guy that sort of I think was looking at using data, and he introduced the guys from Stat DNA to Arsenal, and obviously in the end they decided to buy the company outright. It used to be an independent data collection company with a data analytics attached to it, so with data scientists actually analysing the data. And so Arsenal bought it, which means that obviously they collect the data they want. So it's slightly different to the data that Opta will collect or any other providers. They're collecting the things that they think are important.
So they've got a bespoke system, a bespoke suite.
Correct, yeah. And it's not, I don't think they collect live. They collect a lot of sort of post-match stuff. So they're collecting a lot of things like, the pressure on the players on the ball and things like this. So that there's a lot of detail in that data. And then obviously what they're doing is they're studying that data to, as I say, try and find small advantages in performance, or particularly in the scouting. They're trying to find players who they can buy cheaper, because everybody can spot the top players, but what you want to do is be able to spot a Steven Gerrard before he becomes or a Wayne Rooney before they become an absolute top player. So you get them much cheaper, and then obviously, but of course, again, everyone's trying to do that, and it doesn't always work out. I mean, there's been plenty of players over the years that have gone for big money as teenagers or have been brought in on a lot of money from foreign clubs and have just not, fitted into new teams. So it's not an easy task to do. But yeah, I mean, Arsenal felt that obviously it was better to have their own data, their own guys analysing that to gain a bit of competitive advantage over, because obviously everyone else is using Opta data or Prozone data and is kind of sharing that data and probably to a certain extent sharing that insight.
So you work for Opta. I mean, how did you get involved with Opta?
So I worked in advertising for a few years and hated it. So I decided that if I was going to spend 40 odd years of my life working, that I ought to find something that I enjoyed doing. So I kind of resigned and went off to try and do a few bits and bobs. I was writing for a couple of the Arsenal fanzines at the time, and I was using facts and figures more than sort of using opinion in those pieces, and then spotted an ad in The Guardian for an editorial person to come and work for Opta, and so applied for the job and luckily got it. I sort of joined in 1998, so getting on for 20 years now that I've been there.
Nearly the same amount of time as Wenger's been at Arsenal.
Yeah, pretty much. My career.
Do you think you're getting better at your job or worse?
Well, there's probably a split opinion on that. So, but yeah, so I mean, obviously it's changed massively. When I started, there was sort of very much a timetable approach to data. It was being, lots of big numbers in big tables, and fans were kind of expected to do, the interpretation themselves. But my background in advertising sort of led me to, feel that we needed to break it down into smaller, bite-sized pieces. And, to sort of do the heavy lifting for ordinary football fans, to bring data to life, to sort of, try and find interesting ways of looking at it. And, so yeah, I mean, I kind of, I was in the editorial team. I was like the second person, in the editorial team. And, sort of a year or so later, I was, managing a team which sort of grown to around about 80 people worldwide now. My role sort of changed in the last couple of years in that Opta's been bought several times by different companies. It's now owned by Perform Group. And I'm now sort of looking at more advanced analytics. So I'm sort of working on this in the same area as some, a Stat DNA are.
Yeah.
But, obviously with Opta data and working with clubs and with also media clients. So, pretty much whenever you see data out there, it's come from the team at Opta. And, as I say, it's trying to bring a little bit of insight and fuel debate for us all, in terms of looking at teams. And, Arsenal have been great over the years. They've always provided plenty of really good stats and insight for us. They're always, very entertaining. from the, and also one of the things that I used to do was write club reports for Arsenal that used to go to Arsene Wenger, and quite often he would quote things out of them in his Friday press conference.
Right.
So it was always interesting to see which bits he picked out, like, Arsenal being the most fouled team and that kind of thing. That was sort of stuff that we picked out and sort of passed on.
You'd brush your shoulder every time you heard a quote from one of your
yeah,
sort of thing.
But I sort of went for years and years trying to point out that Manuel Almunia wasn't good enough, but unfortunately he never picked up on that one.
So Opta, I mean, you've spawned so many amateur analysts, professional analysts. I mean, analytics now and stat event data has gone in so many different ways, from, like you said, XG, you've got goal maps and so on, you've got pass maps and heat maps and so on and so forth. I mean, and what I found personally, I don't know about you, Dave, but for me, I find it quite difficult to digest what some of these people are coming. I'm sure some of the work that people are producing is fantastic work, but I do find it difficult to digest. I understand the language and then digest what they're saying to me. And when I try and approach a few of them, I do find that there is it's difficult to engage with them, and I always think to myself, how can the analytics community make things more easily readable to the layman like myself? How much of an effort has, in your eyes, the analytics community made in terms of sort of like bridging that gap between, the event scientist data, or the data scientist, and the common man or woman?
Are you asking me this one, or?
Well,
no.
Rob first, and then I'll ask for your opinion about how you see things.
Good, because I need to think of an opinion on that.
So really, this is my area, because, obviously I've sort of headed up the Opta data editorial team for many years, and it was about transforming the way that data was presented. So, it was sort of trying to get it across in a very simple and straightforward way. So you'll see our Opta facts, permeating every aspect of football. You'll hear commentators saying them live on air. You'll see pundits using them. You'll see them used in match reports. And I go to games and you hear people basically regurgitating the things that you've written in the week that have been printed in the newspaper, as if they were, the person that had done all the research. So, everyone's become an expert because Opta's provided that data, and it's about us communicating it in a simple and straightforward way. The thing with the data analytics community is it is full of very, very clever people, many of them rocket scientists, and they will write a long piece which incorporates all sorts of really interesting analysis, really incredible insight, but it will just be buried in a massively long article which just is too convoluted and too complicated for ordinary football fans. For Opta, the data geeks, like myself, absolutely lap it up. I mean, this is why I love this job so much. It's because I love to sit down with some data and to find some insight. But the absolute key for us is communicating it in a simple and straightforward way for ordinary football fans, because for Opta to succeed as a business, it has to communicate with ordinary football fans. And so that's really my role now. I have at the moment 3 data scientists that work for me, and, they will produce pieces, and I'm constantly sort of saying to them, think about how you're communicating with ordinary football fans. You've got to almost get to the lowest common denominator. They understand the game, so you need to talk in sort of, football jargon, not in stats jargon. And so that's why we try to do, graphical interpretations, but a lot of it, as you say, is about how that's communicated. We don't often have much of a route direct to market. I mean, we do with obviously Opta Joe, the Twitter feed. But, the Monday Night Football touchscreen is powered by Opta data. The graphics that you'll see on there are Opta data. We have all the XY coordinates, etc. But it's absolutely key that you have someone like Gary Neville who understands the game, who's communicating that to ordinary football fans. And the reality is that actually, for a lot of the media outlets, they just don't have people who understand it well enough to be able to communicate it, or they understand it too well and don't communicate it well enough. And it just becomes effectively a list of numbers. So if I sort of say to you, 80% passing accuracy, it sounds like a high number. So it sounds pretty good, but actually it's not usually. And it depends on where those passes are being done. So it's all about, trying to communicate it simply in straightforward ways, and also to try and give it some context to say, well, actually, this guy is doing this, but actually that's not very good compared to the average, or it's much better than you'd expect. And that's absolutely the key.
Mm. That's why you need quality writers like me to interpret it. My degree is in history, and I used to love all the research, but you still need to, as you say, it's interpreting the facts, isn't it? Whether you're writing an essay in a history degree, or whether you're writing a match report and using stats. Because that phrase, and it's a well-used one, is there's damn lies and statistics, is one, but also for every stat, there's always going to be 2 different ways to use it, or 3 different ways to use that stat. And it will be very much based on your opinion and also what you're trying to convince people of. So I like writing blogs or articles where I'm trying to convince someone of my view, and I like using stats where it's appropriate to contextualize my view or sort of back my conviction. And I think all writers are the same, and that's why it's invaluable. It's fantastic. But the only thing is, it always has to evolve, doesn't it? As you say, there was a few years ago, the three of the highest pass completion stats, 2 of the top 5 in the Premiership, about 5 years ago, were Swansea players. Swansea players, because the way they always played the ball out from the back. So you had Angel Rangel and the centre back who's gone to Everton with the 2 of the 5 highest percentage passing stats in the league. Well, that's irrelevant. But, as you say, you've got to contextualise it. But I think the one that also is the one that will always come back to is the assists and the pre-assists. And because looking at the assists just on their own, we all do that. We're all guilty of it. And it's a very powerful stat to say Mesut Ozil got 19 assists last year. But when you actually look at where those assists came from and how many were from dead balls and how many actually were just a pass to someone on the edge of the area who then rifled in a 25-yard shot, it's fascinating. But I love it. I love that you do it, and I love that it's there for us all to use. With Scorecard and Who Scored and Opta, it's fantastic.
Assists
for a writer.
Interesting. Assists are a really interesting stat because even in conversations with a club, we'd asked, we were talking to a club and they were sort of saying, we'd like to sort of see players with their minutes per assist as who's actually creating the most chances. And I said to them, well, the reality is that actually that a lot of the issues around assists are based on the quality of the striker you're playing with. So if you're creating a lot of chances, but they're not converting them, you're not going to get many assists. Whereas obviously if you're playing alongside someone like Aguero, you can almost create half chances for them and they'll be full. And so, what we actually do is we collect, all chances created for all shots, but we also look at how they're created, dead balls or open play. And we also then, add additional qualifiers. So some of those chances created are termed big chances because they're sort of laid on a plate, or they're, they're actually sort of, deemed as, sort of creating, lost my track there. So that the assists are, an interesting category where we have sort of different layers onto those assists. Now, from the public in normal circumstances, you only see the top level number. But the reality is the club have a much deeper, in-depth, look at that with more different qualifiers. So, it's a really interesting thing where you look at not only the things that teams are doing successfully, but what they're also doing unsuccessfully. If a guy is Mesut Ozil last year, not only did he create 19 assists, but actually he created more chances in a single season than any player has in any season we've ever analysed. Yeah. It was over 150 chances. So, he was consistently doing it, but actually, if there really should have been more of those should have been converted.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that, if you've got 10 assists from 100 chances and somebody else has got 20 assists from 100 chances, then it's important to look at the reason for that. Is it the striker or is it the quality of the chances that are being created? So context is everything.
I'll tell you what I find fascinating also with this sort of statistical data that's coming out is it looks at the sexy side of football. The assists, pre-assists, the goals, chances, crosses, headers, so on and so forth. But what I noticed Stat DNA do is it actually plots or tracks errors or spaces or errors where the defenders are making, or errors where I think it plots where errors are made in defence.
Yeah.
If that's
so I mean, Opta collect those as well. So we collect errors where they lead to the opposition team getting a chance of a shot at goal. But again, the likes of StatDNA or other suppliers who are doing it post match will also collect it in a bit more detail, and they will. But ultimately, things like those are quite a subjective choice. So what actually do you term as an error? There's definite obvious ones, and there's other instances where clearly they aren't, but there's also quite a big grey area. So again, it's important to have concise and precise definitions so that people exactly know what you're collecting and then what they're able to do with that data. So yeah, it's constantly developing. I mean, we at the moment, we're working very much with event data, but we'd hope that in future, there will be more tracking data, whether that's optical or wearables. There'll be more tracking data available in future to work, and then, to hopefully marry up with the event data. So at the moment we know about shots, but we don't know what's happening, with regard to other players. So, we should be able to start to look at whether players should shoot or were there better options, or was this shot under pressure or not under pressure. So, we're really, really only scratching the surface even now. And as I say, Opta's been around for 20 years. So, hopefully there's lots of more interesting stuff to come.
You did your Opta recently had the Opta forum where you had a lot of analytics guys come in and you shared information. Just tell us briefly what came out of that. What kind of stuff can we be looking out for coming onto the market?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, again, it's sort of a lot of R&D, so that there's lots of sort of looking ahead, and there were people there that were marrying up the event data with the tracking data and looking at trying to sort of formulate some sort of insight into into performance. And there was a couple of there was one based around crossing, which analysed where crosses were made from certain positions on the pitch, and one of the conclusions was that at a certain place on the pitch you were sort of, I think, twice as likely to score if you crossed to the far post as you were to the near post. So there was sort of some interesting analysis there. There was some interesting analysis on looking at, marrying the tracking data up to sort of see what the best pass was as far as increasing your chances of scoring a goal. So it was an animation, so you could actually sort of see the numbers updating, and as you could see all of the players on the pitch, so you could sort of see where you were trying to get the ball to. So there was some pretty interesting stuff, and there's also just been the Sloan conference at MIT in the States, which is primarily focused on US sports, but there is also a soccer or football.
That's the one that Kroenke was at last year, wasn't he?
Yeah. So I mean, and Hendrik Almstedt was actually on the soccer panel this year over there. So there's lots of really interesting stuff being done. I mean, you can obviously have a look on the Opta Pro website, and on the blog there'll be a lot of the presentations that were done at the forum will be up there for people to have a look at. And as I say, it's all pretty new stuff that people are still learning about the data, still want more access to data. So there's a long way to go really before we'll sort of solve football and suddenly be able to really identify where things have gone wrong for Arsene Wenger over the last 5 or 6 years. I
want to ask you just briefly before you go. I mean, even though you watch Arsenal's travails, do they still give you a lot of fun? Is it still a lot of fun actually studying Arsenal in terms of, for stats and, data and such and such forth? Because, when I look at it, we're not converting a lot of our chances now, as you were saying, since November, and, defensively, there's a lot of, there's a lot going wrong defensively. You can look at the goalkeeper and so on and so forth. So is it still give you a lot of, do Arsenal feed and nourish your work when you look at them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I said Arsenal have always been really good because they either have very positive numbers or very negative ones. And I get accused quite often on Twitter of being very negative, but actually all I do really is report the interesting numbers I find. I don't particularly always, subscribe to the fact that I'm particularly negative or particularly positive. I mean, it's interesting. I think, if the league had started on the 13th of December, Arsenal would be ninth. We've got the same number of points as Stoke in that period and 4 fewer than West Brom. Something's gone wrong in the last couple of months. And it's interesting to me as to what, why that's happened. Since mid-December, Arsenal have allowed more shots on target against them than 11 other teams, including all our title rivals, but also teams like Swansea and Palace and Leicester. Defensively, we seem to have gone to pieces. We're giving up so many chances. And also, again, we had the best chance conversion in the Premier League, up until December.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier on, there was a point where we'd had 7 goals from 7 shots on target. It was just unsustainable.
Yeah, overachieving.
Scoring for nearly every chance. Weren't performing very well, but getting the results because we were scoring. But, the Gunners' chance conversion has since dropped. And since mid-December, 9 other teams in the league have actually been more clinical. And, we were averaging, say, probably about 1 goal for every 4 shots previously. Yeah. It's now 1 in 6. So we're having to create 50% more chances to score a goal. These are the kind of numbers which show how our form, just hasn't been there all season. But whereas before we were getting a bit of luck here and there, our form has just dropped off a cliff simply because the numbers were unsustainable. And that's what makes it interesting. You can see, I was tweeting a lot in November and December that, this is unsustainable. It is going to come to an end at some point unless we somehow find a pickup in performance. And sadly, that's been proven to be the case.
Indeed. Rob, I want to thank you for coming on and joining us and sharing with us what you guys do. I think it's been a very enlightening chat, especially for me.
Thanks, Rob.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay, and you can find Rob at Orbinho, that's Orbinho. If you don't know him, I don't know where you've been. Great with his stats and whatnot, his numbers and whatnot. So give him a follow. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for joining us, and all the best. Thank you very much, sir.
Cheers. Take care.
Take care.
Cheers.
Dave, so let's move on to the actual game. Last night, I don't feel anger. I don't feel sadness. I don't feel anything, to be honest with you. 24 hours on. I didn't get to the protest last night. I caught Mark and a couple of the guys in the pub, and we went down to the pub and we watched the game, and it just felt weird. The whole thing felt weird, and I said after the game, 10-2 on aggregate. It's sort of a score that you see in the qualifiers. You're not expecting to see that kind of aggregate scoreline in the last 16 of the biggest competition in Europe. And it's unacceptable. I know that there was a lot of things that went on in the game, that didn't swing our way. Wenger, I think, made some interesting points in the post-match presser about the offside, the penalty, the red card for Koscielny, so on and so forth. But we shouldn't be losing 10-2 at this stage of the competition, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how you saw it.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, I've reflected a little bit. I was drunk before the game. I was even more drunk after the game. So I haven't seen anything on telly. I haven't watched it today. But, as I reflect, what happened last night was unfortunate. But the tie was lost with our naivety in Germany. If we shut that shop at 3-1, we would have been going into that game last night with hope, and the way we started the game last night, that hope would have probably turned into expectation, because we were very, very good in the first sort of 25, 30 minutes last night. Bayern Munich seemed a little bit shell-shocked by how good we were, and I think the whole crowd was. It was just, had the penalty on Theo been given and it been 2-0, it might have been a different story. But it was just always a too big a mountain to climb. 4 goals was too much. 3-1, 2-1, we would have been in that game. And the sad thing is, I can see Leicester going through to the last 8 because they did exactly what we didn't do.
Yeah.
They were under the cosh, they were outplayed, and they came away with a 2-1. This is what you have to do. This is what George Graham team would have done. It's what an early Wenger team would have done. It's what we haven't been able to do for many, many years in Europe. It's just one of those things. We just have to shut it behind us and move on and look forward to the FA Cup. There really is no point dwelling on it because it wasn't about last night. It was about what happened in Germany, I think.
Indeed. And looking forward, I mean, a lot of people were saying that, the FA Cup means nothing. It's depressing. The fact that we've only got that really to look forward to is depressing in itself. But for me, I just want to. I don't think.
Well, you never hear that from me. That.
Yeah, exactly. I want to win the FA Cup because I want to win the FA Cup. I want to go to Wembley. I want to go to semi-finals. I want to go to the final. I want to go out. It doesn't symbolise. It's no symbolism attached to it for me. I don't think if we win it, Wenger deserves another contract or
No.
I just want to win it.
No, I love the FA Cup, and I would. Well, to be honest with you, I don't really enjoy the Champions League that much. I love the FA Cup. I've always loved the FA Cup, and it's very well known. People who read my stuff over the years, I'm very resentful to how unseriously Wenger's taken the domestic competitions. Not so much in recent years, but certainly between say 2006 and 2011. So no, I'm all for winning the FA Cup. We could have a cracking semi-final lineup. Whoever we play, it's going to be a fantastic game, and we've got every chance of getting there. It's just about regrouping. And getting that squad, whatever's going on behind the scenes, getting it right. I don't think we need to be 100% right before this weekend. Whatever Lincoln have done today, we don't have to be at our best to win. But after that, we will have to be at our best if we're going to do it. We're going to be playing a top four team in the semi-final, whatever happens if we get there. So, yeah, no, I'm with you. I'd love to be signing off on a Wenger reign with a cup final win, if that is to be the case.
What do you think of all this that's been going on behind the scenes with Alexis Sanchez? I mean, people say that he's been disruptive. Some people say, he's whoever leaked it is hanging out to dry. Wenger's come out and sort of like defended him. No other manager would have done that, and so on and so forth. I think to myself, okay, he's petulant. You get that. With players who have a really high desire to. Remember, he's South American as well. American mentality. We're not talking about Carlos Vela or Denilson here. This is the guy with a serious desire to win. If you look at Carlos Tevez, you look at Suarez, in their own way, they skirt the dark arts, they skirt the lines in their own way, and it's all because they want to win, and they do whatever it takes to win. I see people saying that he should get the hell out of the club. Him. I think there was some sort of a clip of him laughing at the scoreboard yesterday. I don't even think he was laughing at the scoreboard. To me, it seemed like, I don't know. I can't vouch for him, but sometimes you don't know whether to laugh or cry.
No. I mean, he's a winner, as you say. He's a winner, and we need more winners in the squad, not less. I find I'm possibly too cynical, but it seemed very, very unusual that every paper seemed to have the same story at the same time with the same lines. If that wasn't leaked from the football club, I will be astounded. So I don't know what's going on with every newspaper, every media outlet getting the story with the detail, and then at the press conference that followed, Wenger said he denied all knowledge, it never happened. I can't get my head around it, Giles. I really can't on that one, because it had to come from the club or someone within the club. What we don't know is whether that was intentionally leaked or whether somebody decided to leak it, but it had to have come from one source because all the papers and the websites covered it in exactly the same way. So it's an odd one. And you come back to the player, it's resolvable. I mean, I don't think it hit the press the same way, but I'm fairly certain that Olivier Giroud and Mesut Ozil had a bust up on the training ground at the end of last year. It was just before the AFC, the community, the foundation ball. It was in that last few weeks of the season. I was told that by somebody, somebody inside the club, and that never came out. That never hit the papers. And I was at that foundation ball, seeing them standing at one end and the other end of like the whole squad on the stage, thinking, oh, maybe that does look a bit obvious. The body language between those two is awful. But you'll get over it.
Up and down.
Exactly. It really does. It really does. I can't imagine that back in Tony Adams' day, that wasn't happening literally every day. If you weren't doing what Tony Adams wanted you to do, you were going to get it. Of course you were. And they're all men. They all want to succeed, and emotions run high in sport. That's just the way it is. I don't have an issue with Alexis at all.
Exactly. I'm just going back to Lee Dixon. I was at the end of last season. Lee Dixon was at the fans forum, and he said, he remembers, I think it was Bergkamp and I can't remember who else it was, in the middle of the training ground, and they had a bust up. Wenger's come over, didn't really say anything about it. I mean, when you've got people, winners, in your squad, they don't have to be best mates. I mean, Lee Dixon said they don't have to be best mates.
No.
You have a common goal, which is to win. And when you have a bunch of guys in the same mindset, things are going to get tasty, and it happens. I mean, I just think it's because the squad seemed to be there's a lot of bonhomie, isn't there? Wenger sort of like cultivated this, Mark Clive likes to call it a creche, the Colney creche, which I think is a very good use of a very good analogy. But he's created this atmosphere where he's rooted out people like Van Persie, who were disruptive, and Giles and so on and so forth. And now he's got a bunch of guys that are all mates and whatnot. And that's great, but you do need that edginess. You do need that, that thing simmering and just under the surface, because that gets the best out of you. And I think, as we've said, it happens up and down the country. I think it's just come out because it's Alexis, and there's, I don't know, maybe certain people inside the club don't want him there, and they're doing their best to sort of like make sure he.
Well, I don't know, but I know a lot of people don't agree with me on this, but I still give a lot of credence to the thought that there needs to be, a captain on the pitch and a captain in the changing room and a captain on the training ground. We've had very strong captains over the years, going back to when I first started watching Arsenal in the 70s all the way through. We've had strong figureheads, as captain of our football club. And it's a long time, we are looking, since 2005, where we've really had someone you'd look at and say, that is the captain of Arsenal Football Club. And I'm sorry, it must make a difference. Yeah. It must make a difference. I saw Laurent Koscielny grow enormously during the Euros. And when he came back, I thought, he looks a foot taller. He's proud. He's performed. He's the first choice for his country. He had a great Euros. He started the season. I thought maybe he can be a captain. But he's still not what I think of as a captain on the football pitch. And he's not the sort of person who's going to go in and sort out issues. Someone told me this week that they thought Arteta was very good at that after Van Persie. He got the squad back together. And I do think there's a degree of respect for Mikel Arteta, and I think it was a sad loss. But even I still don't look at him and think, there's a captain of Arsenal Football Club. I just haven't. We haven't had that since Vieira. And it's got to be important, surely. Why wouldn't it be?
And the thing is, when you look at the players, they don't talk to each other on the pitch. The heads go down. Everyone's in their shell, in their own world and whatnot. And I know people say that they don't make captains like that anymore. That we've moved on in terms of, we don't get the Roy Keanes, you don't get the Tony Adams, you don't get, whoever.
Well, where's John Terry?
Yeah.
What about John Terry?
Yeah.
When I hate the guy, I don't condone, anyone who's a racist. I despise the individual, but you can't tell me he's not a captain and a leader on the pitch.
Yeah.
Absolutely, fantastic leader of his team. And,
is it something
where's Morgan? I mean, is it Wes Morgan? I mean, not a Premiership player and hasn't had a good season, but he was a warrior on the pitch for Leicester last year. Him and Huth, warriors on the pitch. We just don't have anybody, and I don't want 11 of them, but we need one or two. We have to have one or two of them. I do believe that.
Is it something you expect? I mean, when, back in the summer, you looked at Mustafi and Xhaka, who, Xhaka's got a very, interesting career in Germany. He seemed to be quite a warrior, quite a fighter. Mustafi, when he first come in, looks quite assertive and so on. I thought to myself, the kind of profile of player, the mindset that could change, that looks good. It's just like we're evolving into a more hard, hard-headed, tougher unit. And
it's taken us only 6 months to knock it out both of them.
Exactly. Exactly, and it's so frustrating, and I just wonder now, moving on. I mean, get to the end of the season, I've said it openly. I'm sure you've got your own opinions, but I've said openly, if Wenger doesn't, challenge really for the big two, then there's no point him staying on. People say that, we've got to oversee a transition. I mean, I just think we should kill it now. Kill it at the end of the season, and move on. There's certain things in place, although there's, it's not been hardwired, but there's certain things in place that can allow us to have a director of football, a sporting director, and a manager that actually coaches the players. I don't know. It might take us 2 or 3 years. It might take us 2 or 3 managers, but, I think if we handle it properly, I don't think that transition period is as dark and as dank as people seem to sort of like.
Well, it's an agenda thing, isn't it? I mean, the people who are saying it would be hard, don't want Wenger to go. I mean, and the people who are saying it may not be so hard probably are ready for change. What I do think is that we are a massive pull. I don't understand people who say Arsenal's not a draw. If there are top managers available in the summer and Wenger decides not to sign that new contract, which I sincerely hope he chooses not to, and to step away gracefully, I don't think there's going to be any shortage of applications or people wanting to do this job. The question as to whether that person will want a director of football is another question. And of course, it brings us on to the question that Yogi from Culture's Left Foot sent us both earlier, which is an interesting one. And I've not heard anyone ask this question, but it is an interesting one. Is, if we believe, as I think probably you and I do, that we do need somebody to take control of buying the players and looking at the players we need, would people accept Wenger if he was just going back to being a coach and not involved in any other aspect of football, and a director of football came in? And I've not even thought about that, but it's a compromise that some people might settle on.
But the thing is, you've got to ask yourself, would Wenger accept that? That's the first question that I ask myself. Would Wenger accept that? He seems to be a sort of person that doesn't accept. If you look at his coaching stuff, he likes things settled. He likes knowing what he knows. He likes the familiarity. He likes people who won't question. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know that Dick Law does elements of a director of football, but he's not.
He's not taken seriously. He's not taken seriously by any of the big clubs in Europe.
Exactly.
They know that when he leaves the room, they know that when Dick Law leaves the room saying, I'm going to think about it, that he's going to get his mobile out in the next room and ring Arsene Wenger.
Exactly.
They all know.
Exactly.
I'm not sure how well known it is. In 2006, the board said to Wenger, look, we need to save £20 million a year for the next 6 years. This was after David Dean. And Wenger said, well, I can do that for you if you give me control. And that's what happened. And he did it. And we should be eternally grateful. What shouldn't have happened was that when we'd done that and we were through that transition, he shouldn't have then been left in control.
Yeah.
What should have happened was, okay, Arsene, you've done fantastically well for us. You've saved us the money. You kept us in the top 4. You deserve everything that's coming to you, but can you just get back to managing that team and winning us things? And we, identify the players, but we will appoint someone to do it for you. That should have happened. And had that happened, who knows what we might be talking about now?
Exactly. I just don't.
It's a completely different scenario.
Exactly. I just don't see somebody coming in above him, in that director of football role and telling him what's what. I can't see it. So it's a good question from Yogi, but for me, no, it won't. It won't work. He's too old. He's too long in the tooth to actually change now. He's got too much control. But I think any manager coming in now, we can set a structure above him and in place around him. A new guy, especially somebody on a continent, because that's what they know. That's all they know. All they know is give you a list, you go out and get them, I coach them.
Yeah.
And that's how it's been on the continent for many, many a year. So, if he doesn't sign, then, I'm expecting that to be in place. And as I said, I think there are certain things are in place, probably not as hardwired as they could be. But I suppose Saturday, are you going down there on Saturday evening?
Yeah, Saturday evening is 5:30, isn't it? Yeah. Yes, I shall be there.
And I've heard a little dig about it. Mark tells us that there is another protest planned. Are we allowed to
outside outside the director's entrance, is it not, or something?
Something like that. Were you down there last night? Did you join the march, or did you see?
Didn't join the march. I did tell Mark I would try and join it at the end. I was with I was with 3 clients yesterday, which I'm not normally for football, but I was, I was being entertained, and I was entertaining, shall we say. So I couldn't very well just say, right, having had a nice lunch with you and lots of beers in the afternoon, I'm just going to leave you and go and demonstrate. So no, I didn't. I rather lost track of time, shall we say.
Yeah, but decent numbers from what I hear. Decent turnout.
Yeah, it seems to be. I don't watch Arsenal fan TV very often, but I did watch Mark's interview with Robbie, and he came across very well, and he made his point very eloquently. And I've watched that little documentary that our colleague made as well. So there are some very. The problem I said to Mark about the demonstration on Saturday is, I guess, one of my issues is that these occasions and these protests are getting hijacked by the extremes. And I don't want to be on a protest with people who are just going to scream obscenities at Arsene Wenger, and the guys I'm talking about on Fan TV and others. I have my own views. I'm quite strong in them, but there's a time and a place. And I mean, even last night in the ground, some bloke about 4 or 5 yards back from me started hurling abuse at Wenger, during the second half, and I virtually jumped over my seat. So I just turned around and started, telling him exactly where he should be going, and just, I said, leave it. This is not where you do it in the ground. So, I'm a bit, I'm a bit conflicted on it. I mean, I want it to happen. I want the change, but, and I do accept why people think we need to let the club know that we want change. My belief is they know. They have to know. So I don't think my presence will make a huge amount of difference. I think it's going to happen. But I wish the best of luck to Mark and those who are involved, and I respect what they're trying to do. I guess like Akil, it's probably not for me. When I see those sort of people marching at the front, filming themselves, it doesn't inspire me to join the occasion.
All right, so on to Saturday. Prediction for Saturday: how much do you think we're going to win by? I mean, Amanda reckons that we're taking it for granted already, but playing at home, we're not playing at wherever they play, Lincoln play.
Well, this is why I love the FA Cup, because we've given, this is the class of Arsenal. They've got 9,000 seats in the Emirates Stadium. This is their cup final. It's going to be a magnificent atmosphere. I'm looking forward to this game as much as I was last night or any other big game. For me, it is a big game. It's an FA Cup final.
Do you think a lot of people turn up? You think a lot of Arsenal fans will turn up for this game?
There seem to be people asking for tickets. I don't think there's many left. I mean, to be honest with you, I used 2 of my silvers to get tickets for me, because Paul's over from South Africa.
Okay, yeah.
And for Alex, who writes for Gunners Town as well. And I forgot to do it first thing in the morning. By the afternoon, Paul couldn't. He was going to online using my account. He couldn't get 2 seats together within 3 hours of the match going on sale. So I think it's going to be a full house. This is the sort of game that people who can't normally get to the game will be at, and should be a cracking atmosphere for that very reason. And I hope that we do what we did at St Mary's. I hope we pick an attacking
and
4-3-3. Give the players, some of the players that we all want to see playing, like Lucas Perez, a run out, and let him stake his claim, because that was probably my most enjoyable game of the season.
Yeah,
the St Mary's away, apart from the fact I was sat behind DJ. That aside, it was a fantastic match, and I love that formation. And it's a whole new subject, of course, because it brings. We don't need to talk about it today, but if you're going to play that formation, what do you do with Mesut Ozil?
Commit to it. Just commit to a formation and deal with it. Look, I know what you think of Ozil or where you would deploy him. I don't think. I think 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, 4-3-2-1 or whatever it is. You don't necessarily need him so much. No. It's about the system.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying we take that system and play every week, and therefore Ozil can't play. Not at all. I mean, he's probably, if he's not, well, he probably is our most accomplished footballer, and he needs to be in the team. What I don't think is that we need to build the team around his position, because he doesn't deliver those. He doesn't deliver those stats any differently, or those crosses or those through balls any differently from the centre than he would on the left or the right. I'm not, hamstrung to his position as being a central 10. He should be in the team. But I do think the 4-3-3 or 4-1-4-1 in big away games is very valuable. But it doesn't have to be a defensive formation, as we saw against Southampton, where we were just literally, wave after wave of fluid attack with pacey players. I just hope Danny Welbeck's fit. Yeah, I really think he's going to be very important to how we finish this season.
Some Pepto-Dismal. Is that what you do? Is that what you take for the runs and stuff? Yeah, you give
is that what it was? I didn't get to the ground till about a minute before kickoff, and I was just told when I got there, sat down in my seat by my guy sits next to me, that he injured himself in the warm up. So it wasn't an injury; it was an upset tummy. Was it?
Yeah, he wasn't injured or anything like that. I think he had some bowel problems.
He must have been round to Mezzets for dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Indeed. All right, Dave. Thanks for that. It's going to wrap it up here. Sorry, guys, it's not been as lively and upbeat as it normally is, but what can you do? Hopefully you got a lot out of the podcast. Obviously Rob Orbino came on and spoke about his stats, and we've just tried to tie it up. I think we've given it a bit more of a we haven't been that melancholy, have we, tonight, Dave?
No point. There's no point. No. It's only a game, Giles.
Yeah.
It's only a game.
It's a funny old game, isn't it?
Funny, someone wrote a book called that.
Still out in the bookstores, isn't it? Yeah. All right, mate.
I'll see you Saturday, probably.
All right. Yep. This has been a Gooner Ramble podcast. I've been your host, Giles. Dave Seeger saying thank you and good night.
This podcast is sponsored by the UK's #1 matched betting site. OddsMonkey shows you exactly how to turn free bets into real money. Win even if your bet loses. Give it a try at oddsmonkey.com for just £1 when you sign up to premium using the offer code BERGCAMP.